Welcome to the Hellfire Book Club, where we don't just read books, we dissect them, rip out their guts, and leave them bleeding on the floor. Today, we're diving into the chilling world of Adam Nevill's The Ritual, a novel that doesn't just flirt with horror, it takes you by the throat and drags you screaming into the darkness. The Ritual is a brutal and haunting exploration of survival horror, drenched in the primal fears that linger in the darkest corners of the human psyche. Nevill doesn't just take you on a journey into the Scandinavian wilderness, he hurls you into a relentless nightmare that gnaws at your sanity, and by the end, you're left questioning what's more terrifying: the horrors of the forest or the demons inside your own mind. The story follows four university friends on a hiking trip that quickly devolves into a desperate struggle for survival. What starts as a nostalgic reunion soon spirals into a harrowing experience as they stumble upon a horrifying discovery deep in the forest: an eviscerated animal carcass strung up in a tree. And from there, it only gets worse. The novel spirals into a blend of psychological terror and visceral horror, as the group is hunted by an unseen force and eventually stumbles upon an ancient, desolate house filled with ominous symbols and the remnants of a pagan ritual. Think you've seen everything the horror genre has to offer? Think again. Nevill excels at crafting a sense of isolation and dread. The Scandinavian wilderness isn't just a setting, it's an oppressive, sentient being that seems hell-bent on swallowing these characters whole. The deeper they venture, the more the forest closes in around them, trapping them in a nightmarish loop of fear and despair. The story is structured in 3 parts. In part 1, we meet the characters. Luke, our protagonist, grappling with a cocktail of failure and guilt that only intensifies as their situation worsens. Hutch, the de facto leader, whose attempts to keep everyone motivated but starts to crack under the pressure. Phil, the friend whose paranoia makes him the perfect target for the terror surrounding them. Dom, the complainer, physically and mentally crumbling and dragging everyone else down with him. The dynamic between these characters is tense from the outset, but as the story progresses, their friendships unravel faster than a cheap sweater. Nevill masterfully peels back the layers of their psyche, exposing their fears and insecurities like raw nerves as they face the unknown terror stalking them. And let's be real, some of their decisions? It's like they've never seen a horror movie before. You almost expect them to split up and start investigating strange noises. Classic. In the second part, Nevill delves deep into the psychological aspects of the characters. This is where the real horror takes root, not in the physical threats, but in the unraveling minds of the protagonists. Luke's guilt and feelings of inadequacy magnify as he faces the increasingly dire situation. His internal demons become just as terrifying as the external ones. Hutch's leadership is put to the test, and those cracks in his confident facade? They start to look more like gaping chasms. Phil's paranoia grows, making him an easy mark for the terror that's stalking them. Dom's struggles push him to the brink, causing friction within the group that makes you wonder if they'll even make it out alive, or if they'll tear each other apart first. This deep dive into their psyches adds layers to the characters, making the horror of their predicament all the more personal and intense. The forest isn't just closing in around them, it's getting inside their heads, warping their perceptions, and driving them to the edge. And then we get to the final part. The remaining survivors are captured by a cult that worships the ancient entity stalking them. These people make your average horror movie cult look like a knitting circle. Their devotion to the entity is terrifying and fascinating, dragging the story into even darker territory. The climax involves a harrowing ritual where Luke is forced to confront both the supernatural terror embodied by the entity and his own personal demons. It's not just about survival anymore. It's about facing the parts of himself he's been running from all along. And let me tell you, the ritual is a nightmarish blend of ancient rites and psychological torment that will push Luke to the brink of his sanity. The intensity of these final scenes is off the charts, filled with visceral horror and emotional depth, making it a gripping and unforgettable conclusion. The ritual explores themes of survival, friendship, and the primal fear of the unknown. It's a gripping tale that makes you question what you would do in the face of unimaginable horror. Neville's horror is multifaceted. There's the raw, physical fear of being hunted, the creeping dread of the unknown, and the disturbing realization that the characters are not just fighting for their lives, but their very souls. But let's be honest here, no book is perfect. When it comes to pacing, the middle section might feel like it's dragging its feet through the mud. It dives deep into the psychological aspects, which is great for character development, but can make you wonder if you've wandered into a different book altogether. And those character decisions? Sometimes you just want to shake them and say, "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" As for predictability, seasoned horror readers might see some of the twists coming from a mile away. But despite these critiques, the novel's strengths far outweigh its weaknesses. The Ritual is not for the faint of heart. It's a dark, disturbing tale that will haunt you long after you've turned the final page. Neville's ability to weave horror with psychological depth makes this novel a standout in the genre. If you're a fan of horror that doesn't just shock, but lingers, The Ritual is a must-read. Thanks for tuning in to the Hellfire Book Club, where we don't just read, we delve into the darkest corners of literature and drag out the monsters hiding there. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what books have left you looking over your shoulder. Got any suggestions for future episodes? Drop them below. Your support helps us bring you more tales that challenge your imagination, test your bravery, and keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay curious and stay scared.